You think you're special to her. You convince yourself that this wild passion, this speed with which she threw herself into your arms, is a sign of destiny. A sign that you were the one she was waiting for. That with you, she can finally be herself uninhibited, bold, real. Let me tell you a cruel but necessary truth. In all likelihood, you are not special. You are just next. The next exhibit in her collection, the next checkmark on her list, the next stepping stone for her self-esteem. And as soon as you're no longer the new shiny object, your spot on the display shelf will be taken, and all that will be left for you is the cold and the silence. Today, we're not going to talk about love. We're going to talk about hunger. But not just any hunger. We'll discuss two completely different kinds that men constantly confuse. The first is a healthy hunger for intimacy. It's the desire to share not only a bed with a woman, but also thoughts, fears, and victories. It's the drive for warmth, for understanding, for creating a shared world. This is a hunger that is satisfied by trust and time. And then there's the second hunger, the hunger of a predator, a hunger for self-validation. It's a black hole inside a woman that she tries to fill with quick conquests. For her, each new man is not a partner, but a fix. A dose of confirmation that she is still desired, that she can still control, that she is still worth something. But this fix wears off quickly. And as soon as it does, she needs another one. There's nothing new about this. It's not an invention of the 21st century. 100 years ago, Freud and Jung, digging into the depths of the human psyche, spoke about how unfulfilled childhood needs and deeply hidden complexes push adults into a relentless, obsessive search for external approval. Such a woman isn't looking for you. She is looking for a patch for her self-esteem. And today, I will give you 7 ironclad signs. 7 filters that will allow you to distinguish, with surgical precision, a woman who is hungry for intimacy from a player who is just keeping score. This knowledge will save you months, maybe even years of your life that you risk wasting in an emotional desert. I'm about to say won't be popular with many, because it will rip the masks off. But if you're here for the truth, not for comforting fairy tales, then help me spread it like this video right now. And if this is your first time on a channel where we talk about things uncensored, subscribe, because the most interesting part is just beginning. And before we start, I'm very interested in our geography. It helps to understand how widespread this problem is. Please write in the comments what city you're from. Just a couple of words. Thank you. Sign 1. The speed of connection. The first and most obvious red flag, which most men in a state of euphoria mistake for a green light, is an abnormal, unnatural speed of connection. This isn't just about sex on the first or second date. It's about a total forcing of intimacy, where the most crucial stage, the stage of emotional discovery, is either completely skipped or crudely faked. What does this mean in practice? It means the woman seeks to close the distance to physical contact as quickly as possible, because that is her goal. Dialogue, learning about your values, your interests, your story, all of this is just an annoying prelude to her. Something to be skipped over like a boring introduction in a book. She doesn't want to know what you dream about at night, or what you fear most in the world. She wants to know that she has conquered your body. Because in her rulebook, that is victory. Why is she in such a hurry? The psychological underpinning of this behavior is simple, and at the same time, tragic. Real emotional intimacy scares her. It requires vulnerability, sincerity, and the willingness to be imperfect. For her, that is tantamount to defeat. Her inner world is a fragile construct built on external validation. She is afraid that if you look into her soul, you will see not a goddess, but a frightened little girl. So she substitutes emotional closeness with a physical one. For her, sex is the fastest and clearest way to get what she needs: a sense of power, control, and her own irresistibility. This isn't a relationship marathon. It's a sprint for a dose of validation. Let's break down the specific behavioral markers, so this isn't just empty theory. The first marker is her conversation. On the very first date, she easily steers the conversation toward intimate topics, tells dirty jokes, and makes overt compliments about your appearance. She's signaling, "We're not here to discuss Kant, let's get down to business." The second marker is her actions. She violates your personal space very quickly, constantly touching you, adjusting your clothes, suggesting you go to her place for coffee, just an hour after meeting, ignoring any of your attempts to prolong the courtship and conversation phase. The third and most important marker is her reaction to your attempts to slow things down. If you try to get to know her on a deeper level, asking questions about her childhood, her goals, her views on life, she either jokes it away, gives one-word answers, or steers everything back to the topic of sex. It's as if she's playing a different game. You are trying to play chess while she is playing checkers, simply knocking the pieces off the board. Here is a real-life example. The story of a 48-year-old architect. He met a stunning woman at a business conference. She immediately took the bull by the horns. 15 minutes into the conversation, she was whispering in his ear that he smelled like a real man. An hour later, they were on their way to her place. The man was on cloud 9. He thought he had met his soulmate, a woman without hang-ups who knew what she wanted. The first 2 weeks were like fireworks. But when the initial passion subsided and he tried to build something more to talk, go to the theater, introduce her to his friends, he hit a wall of ice. She became cold, irritable, and soon just disappeared, ceasing to answer his calls. The man was left completely bewildered, feeling used. He didn't understand the main thing. For her, the game was over on that very first night. He had been captured. The trophy had been won. The rest was uninteresting. Now let's look at the counter case. How does a woman who is genuinely interested in you as a person, not as an object, behave? She too may feel a strong attraction, but she will savor the process of getting to know you. She will be genuinely interested in why you chose your profession. She will laugh at your childhood photos. She will remember the names of your friends. For her, physical intimacy will be a logical and desired extension of emotional intimacy, not a substitute for it. She is in no hurry because she values the journey, not just the destination. She is building a bridge, not just leaping across the chasm. The main trap for the male ego here is that this forced connection is incredibly flattering. A man thinks, "Wow, I must be so amazing that she can't resist me." He mistakes her haste for a sign of his own exceptionalism. But in reality, he is just a function to her. He is a piece of gym equipment for lifting her self-esteem. She doesn't see the living person behind your masculinity, your status, or your wit. She sees a projectile that must hit a target. And the faster, the better. We can draw a simple analogy. A relationship built on intimacy is an exquisite meal at a fine restaurant. You enjoy the atmosphere, the conversation, every nuance of flavor. It's a whole ritual. What the player offers is fast food. It's quick, high calorie, and satisfies an immediate hunger. But it has no nutritional value and leaves behind only a feeling of heaviness and regret. So when you see someone handing you this burger, wrapped in the bright packaging of passion right at the door, know this: they're not going to feed you dinner. They're going to eat you dot. So remember the main rule of this sign. A fast start isn't a sign of all-consuming passion, but a symptom of desperate haste. The haste to get what she wants and disappear before she is truly seen. And if a woman is flying into your bed like a rocket, you should wonder, maybe she just wants to fly away from your planet as quickly as possible. Taking a soil sample with her dot sign too. Technique instead of passion. Second sign is one of the most insidious because it masquerades as the highest form of mastery and seduction. It's technique instead of passion. Her actions in bed might be flawless from a physiological standpoint. She may know all the right spots, all the techniques, all the positions. She might seem like a love priestess from ancient texts. But despite all this splendor, you can't shake a strange, chilling feeling that you're not in the arms of a loving woman, but at a session with a very expensive and skilled masseuse. Everything is correct. Everything follows the protocol, but there is no soul in it. What lies at the heart of this phenomenon? For the player woman, sex is not an act of union, not a dance of two souls, but a performance. A sporting event where she needs to show the best result. She isn't feeling you. She is executing a program. In her mind, there is a clear algorithm of actions that, as she knows from past experience, should lead to a certain outcome. She is focused not on you and your reactions, but on her own performance. She's like a virtuoso pianist who flawlessly plays the most complex piece from sheet music, but puts none of her own feelings into it. There is music, but there is no magic. Psychologically, this is again a defense mechanism. Passion is a loss of control. It's spontaneity. It's vulnerability. It's when you dissolve into another person, forgetting yourself. For the collector, this is akin to death. To lose control is to become weak, dependent. So she replaces real passion with its simulation technical perfection. This allows her to remain in the dominant position, in the role of the one who knows how it's done. She doesn't share the moment with you. She directs it. And in this play, you are not a partner, but a prop. Let's look at the specific markers that can help you recognize this mechanical nature. The first is the feeling of being watched from the outside. You can't shake the sense that she is observing the process, evaluating it like a critic. There's no full immersion. The second marker is predictability. After a few encounters, you start to notice that her actions repeat in the same sequence. It's a learned ritual, not a live response to the here and now. The third marker is the absence of tenderness and spontaneity. Her actions have a lot of acrobatics, but very few simple human gestures. Hugs, kisses on the forehead, the desire to just lie next to each other in silence. All her touches are functional. They are aimed at a result. An example from a consultant's practice. One of my clients, a successful businessman, described his relationship with such a woman. He said, "It was incredible. She was like a goddess. But over time, I started to feel not like a man, but like a musical instrument. An expensive, rare one, being played by a brilliant musician. He knows all the strings, all the keys. But he plays for the audience, for himself, to showcase his talent. And how the instrument itself feels at that moment, the violin or the piano, he doesn't care." This metaphor perfectly describes the essence of what is happening. You are an object on which mastery is being demonstrated. And again, the trap for the male ego. A man, especially an inexperienced one, falls into this trap with a resounding crash. He thinks, "Wow, she's so experienced, so passionate. I've finally met a woman who isn't uptight and knows what she wants." He mistakes her technical skills for a sign of her incredible desire. He confuses quantity with quality. He doesn't understand that this experience was accumulated not in the process of building intimate relationships, but through an endless series of one-time matches. Her body is trained, but her heart is not. Let's draw another analogy. Imagine two cooks. One is your grandmother making soup. She might not know the exact measurements. Her movements might not be perfect, but she puts all her love into that soup, and you feel it in every spoonful. The second cook is a robotic arm in an ultra-modern kitchen. It does everything with micron precision, following a verified recipe. The dish turns out technically perfect, but there is no warmth in it. There is no soul. A woman capable of intimacy is the grandmother. The player woman is the robot. So the next time you encounter top-tier performance in bed, ask yourself one simple question. What are you feeling in that moment? A sense of union and warmth, or admiration for someone else's skill, mixed with a slight confusion? If it's the latter, you are most likely just a spectator in the front row of her solo performance. Applause is not required. Only your body has the stage-perfect technique. Without a soul is not a sign of passion. It's a sign of long and diligent practice in complete solitude, even if there were always people around. It is the most sophisticated way to be with someone while remaining completely alone. Sign 3. The lack of aftertaste, the third sign, which hits you like a slap in the face and shatters all illusions, is the complete absence of an emotional aftertaste. We are talking about what happens in the first minutes and hours, immediately after physical intimacy. This moment is a litmus test that flawlessly reveals a woman's true attitude toward you and what has just happened. How does this look in a healthy relationship where there is intimacy? After sex comes a phase of tenderness, vulnerability, and quiet union. People want to talk, to hug, to share their thoughts. It is a natural continuation of the merging that just took place. The physical act flows into an emotional one. The connection isn't broken. On the contrary, it strengthens. This is the time when the strongest bridges between two people are built. What happens in the case of a female Don Juan? Immediately after the performance's finale, the curtain falls with a deafening crash. The very second she gets what she came for, physical release, and another confirmation of her power, you cease to exist for her as a partner. The transaction is complete. You instantly transform from an object of desire into an annoying nuisance, a piece of furniture taking up space in her bed. Her behavior changes dramatically. She shuts down emotionally. Her body, which was so responsive just moments before, becomes tense and distant. She avoids eye contact. She turns to face the wall, and then follows one of the classic scenarios. Scenario 1. The phone. She immediately reaches for her smartphone to check social media, answer messages, and dive into the digital world. With this, she is showing, my attention is no longer here. You are used material. Scenario 2. Things to do. She suddenly remembers urgent matters, starts talking about work, about her plans for tomorrow, about needing to wake up early. She deliberately shifts the context from intimate to mundane, destroying all the magic of the moment. Scenario 3. Sleep. She simply turns away and pretends to fall asleep, cutting off all interaction. The psychological reason for this behavior is fear. She is afraid of the very tenderness and vulnerability that follows. For her, this is dangerous territory where one might accidentally get attached, feel something real, and that would destroy her entire defense system. So she needs to ground herself as quickly as possible to return to her fortress of cynicism and control. Heart-to-heart talks, hugs, tenderness, these are all attributes of intimacy, which she is not looking for and is terrified of. Her task is to make a raid, take the trophy, and quickly retreat to her territory without engaging in prolonged battles on the field of emotions. Let me share a story from a 40-year-old programmer. The most terrifying thing for me was this instant transformation. One moment she was passionate, alive, all there with me. The next, she was a complete stranger. She was lying next to me, but there was a chasm between us. Once, right after intimacy, she picked up her phone and started loudly discussing buying some shoes with her friend. I lay there feeling used, as if I weren't a person, but a thing. A piece of gym equipment that had served its purpose and could now be ignored. This story is the quintessence of sign number 3. The trap for a man here is that he tries to find a rational explanation for this. She's probably tired. She has a lot on her plate. She's just very responsible. Maybe I did something wrong? He starts to look inward, searching for the cause in his own behavior, while the cause lies solely in her psychology. He tries to build in his imagination the intimacy that doesn't exist in reality. He deceives himself because the truth is too painful. The analogy is very simple. Imagine you've come to a concert of your favorite band. The musicians play the last song, and the very second it's over, without bowing, without a word of thanks, they just turn around and leave the stage, and the crew starts dismantling the equipment. That's it. Show's over. No contact with the audience. No, thank you. This is what a man feels next to such a woman. He was an audience member at a show that has ended, and now it's time for him to leave. So observe. Not what happens during, but what happens after. The first 10 minutes after intimacy will tell you more about a woman than 10 dates. If in these minutes she seeks your eyes, your hand, your conversation, there's a chance for intimacy. If she seeks her phone, her to-do list, a reason to leave, know that you are just another session at her gym. The workout is over. You can go to the locker room. Sign 4. Devaluing language, the 4th sign, is how she talks. About sex, about men, about past relationships. Her language is a scalpel with which she dissects the world, stripping it of any warm feelings. It is the language of cynicism, devaluation, and objectification. And if you listen carefully, you will hear not the wisdom of an experienced woman in her words, but the clatter of her psychological defenses. How does this manifest? First, in her vocabulary. She talks about men using derogatory or sporting terms. For her, they are not ex-partners, or men she loved, but specimens, trophies, scalps, boys. She might call sex a sport, a hunt, or a game. The very language she uses strips the process of intimacy and sacredness, turning it into a mechanical act, a competition. She speaks of people as if they were things. Second, in her stories. When she talks about her past relationships, there isn't a drop of warmth or nostalgia. They are always stories of victory or defeat. Either she talks about how she put some jerk in his place, or how she saw through some weakling. Her stories have no room for sadness, for regret, for gratitude for the experience. There is only her in the role of judge and executioner. She never talks about her own fault or her mistakes. The men were always the ones to blame. This is where the great Carl Jung and his concept of the shadow come to our aid. The shadow is the part of our personality that we do not accept in ourselves, that we hide from others and from ourselves. It is our fears, our weaknesses, our shameful desires. A mature person knows, accepts, and controls their shadow. An immature person projects it onto others. The collector woman projects her shadow onto men. Deep down, she herself feels weak, vulnerable, and in need of love. But to admit this is unbearable for her. So she attributes all these terrible qualities to men. She calls them weaklings so as not to feel weak herself. She calls them needy so as not to see her own need. She devalues them so as not to face the horror of her own inner emptiness. Every cynical comment she makes about a man is actually a cry for help from her own wounded soul. Let's consider an example. A woman who says to her friend on the phone, while you happen to overhear, "Yeah, this new one is okay, good for a couple of rounds. His technique needs some work, but overall, it's a pass." This one sentence contains the whole essence. For her, a man is not a person, but a set of functions that can be rated on a scale. He is not a person with a unique name and history, but just this new one. He is not an interesting conversationalist. He has technique. A relationship with him is not a romance, but a couple of rounds. This is the language of a consumer evaluating a product on a store shelf. The trap for a man is that he might mistake her cynicism for a sign of honesty and independence. "Wow, she's so bold," says what she thinks. Not like those other prim girls. He doesn't understand that this honesty is not a sign of strength, but a symptom of deep trauma. She is not free from illusions. She is simply incapable of attachment. He admires her armor, not noticing that behind that armor, there is no one. Or there is, but that person is locked away so deep that they cannot be reached. Imagine a surgeon who treats a patient not as a living person, but as a set of organs. He might be a brilliant technician, but he doesn't heal. He repairs. He has no empathy. This is how the player woman treats men. She is a surgeon performing an operation to extract a dose of self-validation. And once the operation is over, the patient is no longer of interest to her. His feelings, his experiences, all of that is outside her scope. That is why her language is so cold. It is the language of alienation. Through words, she creates a distance between herself and the world. Because if that distance is shortened, the world could hurt her. And she is terrified of that. So, when you hear a woman speak cynically and devaluingly about men, know this: she is not talking about them. She is talking about herself. And this is not a dialogue worth entering. It is a monologue worth staying away from. Her words are symptoms. They are markers of her inability to connect with the most important thing, human warmth. And if you stay by her side, you will very soon turn from my beloved into that guy. What's his name? About whom she will speak just as cynically to her next trophy. It is for this kind of honest and deep analysis, free of illusions, that this channel was created. If you see value in this and are tired of superficial information, now is the best time to subscribe and become part of our community. Sign 5. Amnesia for details. The fifth sign is her astonishing. Selective amnesia for the details of your life. She might perfectly remember the make of your car or the brand of your watch, but she completely forgets what is truly important. What makes you, you? This isn't just female absent-mindedness. It's a direct indicator of her lack of engagement with you as a person. What are we talking about specifically? On your first date, you told her a touching story from your childhood about your dog. On the third, she asks, "Have you ever had any pets?" You shared your worries about a difficult project at work. A week later, she's surprised. "Aren't you on vacation?" You told her your favorite band is Led Zeppelin. The next day, she sends you a pop song with the words, "I think this is your style." She constantly mixes up your friends' names, forgets about your hobbies, and doesn't remember basic facts of your biography that you've already told her. Why does this happen? The answer is simple and ruthless. She is not interested. Her brain works like a filter that screens out all unnecessary information. And unnecessary information is everything that concerns you as a person. Important information is what concerns you as a trophy. Your status, your appearance, your reactions to her seduction. Everything else is informational noise. The human brain is designed to remember only what evokes an emotional response, what has meaning. If she doesn't remember your stories, it means they didn't provoke any response in her and have no meaning for her. This is a fundamental difference from the behavior of a woman who is interested in you. When a woman is captivated by a man, she becomes the most attentive listener in the world. She will remember the name of your first cat, the name of your math teacher you mentioned in passing, the model of the motorcycle you dream of. Because every detail connected to you is important to her. She is assembling the puzzle of your personality, and every piece is precious to her. For the player, you are not a puzzle, but a poster. She only sees the overall picture, the glossy cover. What's inside, under the cover, she couldn't care less. Let me give an example. the story of an entrepreneur. He had been dating a woman for about a month. During that time, he had told her he had a severe allergy to nuts. So severe that it could lead to anaphylactic shock. He was sure she remembered, as it concerned his health, his life. A week later, she invited him over for dinner and proudly placed a salad on the table, generously sprinkled with cashews, saying, "This is my signature dish. You'll love it." The man was in shock, not because she wanted to poison him, but because he realized, for that entire month, he had been a blank space to her. Information about a mortal danger to him had been filtered out by her consciousness as an insignificant detail dot, and again, the trap for the male ego. A man is inclined to justify her inattentiveness. She just has a lot on her mind. She's so swamped at work. Well, it can happen to anyone. I don't remember everything either. He doesn't want to believe the terrible truth. He simply hasn't been allocated even a minimal amount of RAM in her head. He doesn't want to admit that his personality is, for her, like the terms of a user agreement that everyone scrolls through without reading and clicks accept. An analogy from the world of cinema. Imagine an extra in a movie. He might be on set for several days, but the director doesn't know his name. The cameraman doesn't know. The star of the film doesn't know. He is just that guy in the gray coat in the third row. He has fulfilled his function. He created the background. And that's it. This is who you are to such a woman. An extra in her film where she is the main character. And to demand that the director remember your biography is pointless dot, so stop deceiving yourself. Her forgetfulness is not a cute personality quirk. It is a diagnosis of her total, all-consuming indifference to you. And if she can't remember the elementary things about you, it means only one thing. For her, you are a temporary function, not a permanent value. You are an event not worth saving in the archive of her memory. Just conduct an experiment. Tell her some insignificant but personal detail. A couple of weeks later, bring it up in conversation and watch her reaction. If she doesn't understand what you're talking about, know this: you are talking to a wall. A beautiful, impressive, but completely deaf wall to your words. Sign 6. Talking about others. The 6th sign is the sharpest one. This is the moment when a man with any remaining self-respect should get up and leave without saying goodbye. It is her manner of talking about her past sexual conquests. She does it easily, without embarrassment, often with pride, like a hunter boasting about the trophies hanging on the wall. This is not just a story about the past. It is a carefully planned psychological manipulation. Let's make a distinction right away. There is a big difference between a mature conversation about past experiences, which can happen between two close people, and what the collector does. A mature conversation takes place in an atmosphere of trust. It carries an element of vulnerability, and its goal is to better understand each other. What she does is bragging. It is a public demonstration of her desirability and high market value. What are her goals when she tells you, in vivid detail, about her exes? The first and most obvious goal is self-validation. She is essentially saying to you, look at the demand for me. The best wanted me. You should be happy that I chose you. She creates an artificial hype around her persona to increase her value in your eyes. The second goal is to establish dominance. By talking about others, she places you in the position of being one of many. She implies that you are on a perpetual casting call, and your place in her bed is not guaranteed. This makes you try harder, invest more, to prove that you are better than them. The third and most subtle goal is to devalue you as a person. When she compares you to others, even if it's a complimentary comparison, you do this better than my ex, she still turns you into a set of functions to be evaluated. You cease to be unique. You become just another version in her line of iPhones. slightly better or slightly worse than the previous one. Imagine this situation. You are sitting in a restaurant, and she, laughing, says, "I had this one guy, a director of a large company. He was a complete zero in bed. But the one before him was an artist, poor as a church mouse, but so inventive." What are you supposed to feel at that moment? She is inviting you to join this race, to prove that you are not a zero and that you are inventive. She dangles a carrot in front of you that you are supposed to chase like a donkey. It is humiliating. It destroys any semblance of intimacy and trust. And again, the trap that men fall into. Some, especially those with unstable self-esteem, actually get into this game. They start to try harder, to prove themselves, to compete with the ghosts of her past. They think that if they win this remote competition, they will receive the grand prize, her love and devotion. But they don't understand that it's impossible to win this game. Because as soon as you win, the game is over for her. She doesn't need a winner. She needs the competition itself. Other men might mistake her frankness for a sign of openness and lack of inhibitions. She's so modern, talks about these things so easily. But this is not openness. This is promiscuity and a lack of basic respect for you and your budding relationship. Openness is when you share your feelings, fears, and hopes. When you dump a list of your former lovers on your partner with detailed characteristics, it's emotional exhibitionism. The analogy is simple. Imagine you go to a job interview, and the HR person says to you, "You know, the person before you was such a genius, and the one before him was such a hard worker. Let's see what you're made of." You would immediately feel uncomfortable. You would understand that you will be constantly compared. The same thing happens in relationships. By talking about others, she turns your bedroom from a sacred space for two into a public thoroughfare where the shadows of her past are always invisibly present. A woman who values you and wants to build a future with you will instinctively protect your shared space. She will understand that talking about exes is a poison that taints the present. She might answer your questions if you ask them, but she will never, on her own initiative, boast about her exploits, because for her, they were not exploits, but part of her life, perhaps a painful one that should not be put on display. So as soon as you hear such stories from her, know this: it is not an invitation to be open. It is an invitation to the boxing ring. And if you accept this challenge, you are guaranteed to lose. Not because you are worse than her exes, but because you agreed to play a game where the main goal is not to build something together, but to prove something to her. And proving anything to a person who only values quantity, not quality, is impossible. 7. A quick disappearance, and so we come to the finale. The seventh sign is the logical and inevitable conclusion to this whole story. It is her quick and, as a rule, inexplicable disappearance. She simply vanishes from your life. Yesterday, there was passion, dates, messages. Today, there is silence. An icy, deafening silence. She stops answering calls, blocks you on messaging apps, or feeds you short, cold brush-offs. This is called ghosting, and it is her signature move. Why does she do this? Because for her, the game is over. She got what she wanted: self-validation, confirmation of her power, a dose of adrenaline from a new victory. The hunt is over. The trophy has been taken. And what do you do with a trophy? You hang it on the wall and forget about it. It's no longer interesting. Further development of the relationship is not an asset for her, but a burden. It requires time, emotions, responsibility. And that is precisely what she has been running from her whole life. It is easier for her to disappear than to explain that she felt nothing, and that you were just a temporary amusement for her. That an honest conversation is impossible for her for two reasons. First, it requires empathy, the ability to put herself in your shoes and feel your pain. And that organ has atrophied in her. She genuinely does not care what you will feel. Second, an honest conversation would force her to confront herself, her unseemly role as a consumer. And that would shatter the goddess image she so carefully cultivates. It is much easier to just disappear, leaving you bewildered, and preserve her illusion of herself. What happens to the man at this moment? He is plunged into hell. His brain refuses to believe that it was all a lie. He starts to look for the cause in himself. What did I do wrong? Maybe I said something offensive? Maybe I wasn't good enough in bed? He replays your last encounters in his head, looking for hints, signs, mistakes. He blames himself. And this is her final, parting manipulation. By disappearing without an explanation, she leaves you with a sense of guilt and inadequacy. This allows her to write you off and go on a new hunt with a clear conscience, because you were the one who was somehow not right. This trap is the most destructive for a man's self-esteem. A man can spend months, even years, processing such a story, losing faith in women and in himself. He doesn't understand the main thing. He did nothing wrong. On the contrary, he did everything right, according to her script. He gave in, he got carried away, he was conquered. His only mistake was that he met not a partner, but a predator. And being angry at a tiger for eating an antelope is pointless. That is its nature. An analogy from the world of investments. Imagine you invested money in a pyramid scheme. At first, they promise you mountains of gold, show you beautiful statistics, pay out the first dividends. You believe you invest more. And then, one fine day, the company's website stops working. The phones don't answer, and the founder disappears with your money. This is what a relationship with a player is like. It's a pyramid scheme where instead of money, you invest your emotions, your time, and your trust. And the end is always the same: bankruptcy. A woman focused on a relationship, even if she realizes that you are not compatible, will find the strength and respect for an honest conversation. She will say, "I'm sorry, but I don't feel that this will work out. You're a good person, but we're looking for different things." It may be painful, but it is honest. It provides closure. The collector is incapable of honesty. She simply flees the battlefield, leaving ruins behind. Therefore, if you have faced such a sudden disappearance, the most important thing you must do is forbid yourself from looking for the cause in yourself. The cause is not you. The cause is her pathology. You just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. You became another victim in her endless series. And the best thing you can do is to thank fate that she disappeared from your life so quickly, without having time to inflict even more damage. Her departure is not your defeat. It is your liberation. Conclusion: don't become an exhibit in someone else's museum. Have analyzed the 7 signs of a woman with the female Don Juan syndrome. The rapid connection. Technique instead of passion. The lack of aftertaste. Devaluing language. Amnesia for details. Talking about others. And finally, the quick disappearance. If you see them individually, it's a reason to be cautious. But if you see 3, 4, or especially all 7 signs in one woman, run. You are not facing a woman looking for love. You are facing a symptom of a deep inner emptiness that she tries to fill with other people's bodies and emotions. And here we must recall another titan of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud, and his concept of repetition compulsion. Freud noticed that people who have experienced trauma, often unconsciously, strive to repeat the traumatic situation over and over again, not because they enjoy it, but in a desperate attempt to replay it, to gain control over it. The same goes for the collector woman. Most likely, a long time ago, she was betrayed, rejected, made to feel worthless. And now she replays this script for the rest of her life, but this time in the role of the aggressor. She leaves men before they can leave her. She devalues them so as not to be devalued herself. She is doomed to repeat the same cycle: seduction, conquest, devaluation, departure, and so on ad infinitum, until one day she finds the strength to face her real pain. But your task is not to be her psychotherapist. Your task is not to be her medicine. Trying to save or change such a woman is a guaranteed path to your own destruction. You will waste your energy, your time, your self-respect, but you will change nothing. Because she can only change herself if she wants to. And she most likely won't want to. After all, her lifestyle gives her the illusion of power and control. The purpose of this video is not to sow hatred or mistrust of women. There are a huge number of wonderful, deep, and intimacy-capable women in the world. The purpose is to give you a tool, a filter, a security system, so that you can distinguish the real from the fake, so that you don't become another exhibit in someone else's museum of broken hearts. Your love, your time, your soul, these are too valuable to be traded for cheap simulations of passion. Learn to see these 7 signs. Learn to value yourself enough not to settle for the role of just another checkmark. Look for a woman for whom sex is an extension of intimacy, not a substitute for it. Look for the one who will listen to your stories with interest. The one who will want to stay by your side afterward, not grab for her phone. The one who will protect your shared space, not boast about past victories. A real relationship is not a sport. It is an art, and it requires not technique, but soul. I have shared 7 key signs with you, but life is always more complex than any framework. Now, the main question for you, for the wise community of this channel. Which of these 7 signs do you consider the most dangerous, and why? Or perhaps in your life, you have encountered an 8th, 9th, or 10th sign that I haven't mentioned. Write about it in the comments. Let's create the most complete encyclopedia of male safety in relationships. I will personally pin the most valuable and insightful comments to the top.